The Game Awards just ended, and I wanted to share my thoughts after I thought about it a little bit after the end of the ceremony. Now, this was the 10th anniversary of the Game Awards. I cannot believe it's been this long of a time, like holy mother. But as a show, this year especially, I felt like it was always very good quality-wise. Like there were good musicians, good people on the stage. It was entertaining. There was this part with Snoop Dogg, which I really much appreciated. So, as for the show, it was very good. You know, it's probably been the best part of the Game Awards, even in the worst editions of the Game Awards in the past years. You know, past Game Awards may have not been the absolute best. I can almost say that some past Game Awards were absolute crap. But even then, the shows, the musics, the entertainment was personally almost always on the spot. Like it was always good to watch, to listen. It was decently fun. So in that sense, I cannot be too picky because more or less we always have a pretty good show. But the most important parts of the Game Awards are what games are being presented and most importantly the prizes. So, as for the announcement, a lot of the times in these kind of shows, mostly the ones presented by Geoff Keighley, so either the Game Awards or the E3 or Summer Game Fest nowadays, always this problem where 90% of the announced games are more of the same. Like there was a couple of years where the games announced in these events were something like 4 players against myriads of zombies and multiply that by 100, and that was absolutely annoying because 90% of those games, not even 99% of those games were absolutely shit looking and they were not memorable at all. Like if you can think of any game that was presented in those moments, incredible, because personally I cannot remember a single one of them because they all look the same, and to me they all looked like one game. Like I can think of one game, nothing more, nothing less. This year instead, I see that there was a bit more of variety, a bit more of different games. There were of course a couple of games that may have resulted similar, but in general, games this year at the Game of the Year were actually interesting in some way. There was more stuff being unique, and I'm talking about both indie and not indie games, because less known games and more known games developer. Like one of the biggest announcements were absolutely the new Elden Ring game, the new Elden Ring expansion. I still don't understand. Like there's the site that kinda says that it's a new game, but I'm still very confused, especially because the trailer left me confused. Like, why the heck is my boy Nameless King there? Why is Lady Maria there? Because apparently it's a cooperative hero choosing version of Elden Ring, which is very cool, but also what? Like there was the Firekeeper from Dark Souls 3. Well, that was confusing, but that was hype. And most importantly, if it's a new game entirely, next year can actually participate in the Game Awards as a candidate for the Game of the Year, unlike Shadows of the Erdtree, but we'll get to that later. And then, out of nowhere, the announcement of an Okami sequel. We don't know when, but there's a new Okami sequel in the works. Like, I've waited for the Okami sequel for such a long time. We don't talk about Okami then, but yeah, new Okami game out of nowhere absolutely left my. It was the last thing I was expecting. Like, I saw Emmy running out of nowhere. I was like, nah. Like, for a split second, I thought about it was a remake, but that wouldn't make sense because we already have a remake for Okami, and it was for the first years of the Switch, so that didn't make sense. Like, the last thing I thought it was a sequel, because I literally lost hope for a sequel for Okami, so I don't know. So yeah, that was something, and also one of the first announcement, if not the first announcement, was like a new Ninja Gaiden, which was unexpected. Like, I saw a lot of games that made a comeback, like they were maybe a classic game that was forgotten or didn't get a new sequel for a long time. But you know, that was surprising. The only gripe I have is with the new game made from the Scorekeeper developers that kinda looks a lot too much like Terraria. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just that it felt too much like Terraria with a couple of mods, which made me feel a bit weirded out. But overall, the announcements for the new games that we can expect from either 2025 or 2026, or some games were just announced as 2020 something, so we don't actually know how much time it will get before we actually see those games coming out. But overall, the game's announcements were pretty decent. Overall, pretty decent. I really liked how much more variety there was compared to the last years, especially because it was not the zombies again. It wasn't annoying. I was legitimately and positively surprised and actually wanted to watch the new announcements. Okay? Maybe I'm the last one, the only one. But personally, I felt like the announcements were worth it. And now the biggest part of the event, the prizes. Now, I'm not gonna say every single category because it will take too much time, but overall, the winners of each categories were either extremely surprising or deserved. I saw Metaphor Refantasio and Balatro win a couple of prizes, and I think they deserved all the love they got because Refantasio and Balatro are very good games. Like, one is Atlus, one is a very good roguelike card game. Even if I suck at poker, I don't suck at card games, if that makes sense. But I wanted these two games to have a bit more of a space, because Balatro is a new idea for a game, a pretty new idea for a game, and I think it's very cool. And Metaphor Refantasio is a new game from Atlus, and I kinda wanted Atlus to be winning something that is not with Persona, because I feel like they hit the big jackpot with Persona 5, but I wanted them to win with something that is not Persona, because one thing I'm fearing is that Persona 5 is bringing Atlus to do the same thing that Rockstar is doing with GTA 5, which is propose the fifth game of one of their series again and again and again and again, and I don't want that to happen. So I know it's not the case because Atlus is remaking all of the older Personas, but seeing them win some prizes with Metaphor Fantasio is very positive, in my opinion. And also Balatro winning some prizes, it's also very nice because I think it deserves it. What surprised me is some prizes like the adaptation one. I personally think that all the series presented for the best adaptation were actually deserving. Like there was the Lara Croft animation, there was the Fallout series, there was Arcane, there was all candidates were good. There was Knuckles. I feel like they were all deserving of the prize. It was surprising though seeing Fallout win with Arcane right there. I feel like they didn't want to. Now I don't remember if Arcane won the first time with the first series, but I am surprised. But I feel like they didn't want to give Arcane the prize again, which rhymes. Woo! And so they gave it to the Fallout series, which, for a change, seems like a pretty decent series. So surprised, but also not surprised. While the creator of the year didn't disappoint. Okay, with all the respect for all creators presented for the award, the most notable for me personally were either Casio and Pecora. I was fine with either winning. Like I don't care which one of those won. It ended up with Casio, and I really think that he deserves the prize because I think that he's hilarious. So yeah, he absolutely deserves the prize. Congratulations to all participants of the Creator of the Year, of course. I was kind of weirded out that there was no interviewed, like there was no space, no more space dedicated to the creator that won. Like there was no discourse, no talking. Like they just said, Creator of the Year, Queso. Woo! And he didn't talk, he didn't do any. I'm kinda surprised and also weirded out. Like I was expecting something more, like Iron Mouse had to pre-record something. It was weird, but okay. Congratulations to Casio. And now, the biggest thing, the Game Award. As you may know by now, the Game Award went to Astrobot. Now, I have my opinions. First of all, thank goodness it's not the DLC. Because if Shadow of the Earth 3, despite how good it is, because Shadow of the Earth 3 is an amazing DLC, I don't think we should accept DLCs and remakes or remasters for the Game of the Year. Remakes or remasters are probably for games that may have already won something. Now, the Game Awards is only quote-unquote 10 years old, but for the future, if the if the Game Awards is still around, I feel like if something like, quick example, Astrobot Remake, to stay on topic, is out and gets candidated and wins again, I don't think it should be happening. Because at this point, the Game Awards may become a remake run where you remake a game that already won in hopes to win again just for the advertisement. I don't think we should allow remakes to participate. I don't think we should allow remasters to participate. And in a similar sense, I don't think we should allow DLCs to participate for the Game of the Year. The reason is very simple, because DLCs are usually part of another game, and if Shadow of the Erdtree won the Game of the Year for this time, it would have just meant that Elden Ring won again, and it's kinda like the remake remaster thing, like the same game would have won again. So I don't think we should allow it. I think, like I was watching Sayu, watching the Game Awards or all the awards. I think is correct. We should overall we should clean the categories, and I think we should include like best remasters, best remakes, best DLCs, in order to allow new games, actually new games, to enter the award. I am also happy that no gacha game won, not because I don't like them. I really like how the gacha sphere has evolved for the best in the last years, probably thanks to Genshin Impact being such a big impact. But there's usually a lot of controversy behind the fact that gacha games win because they give out free stuff, which I agree, but after a certain point I started to think, why don't they just make a gacha only category, so we know which one is going to win in a better way. It's not gonna take anything from other games, or make a rule that if you get caught promising stuff before the actual prize, you get disqualified. Like, after a certain point, I feel like it's not much the gacha game itself at fault, but how the event is structured, because not many people are interested on the Game of the Year anymore, because, as I said, the last years were usually disappointing as for the announcements. A lot of people lost faith in the Game Awards, especially this year. I saw a lot of people discouraged from the fact that a DLC was participating, which they are self-aware with the two old Muppets here, but yeah, a lot of people are not too interested on how it actually goes, because they lost faith, and at the very least, people are trying to get free stuff. So that's just a sentiment. That's just the proof that something has to change in that regards. Some rules, some categories need to change again. Yeah. After how much is actually the gacha game's fault, and after how much is actually how the event is structured the fault. Okay, it's an interesting discussion. I think we should change something. I think the Game Awards in the last 4 years was not ready for the big uprising that Gacha Games said. So I think we should change something, and I think we can make this better. It's not too difficult. Just make a new category, Gacha Games, and make maybe some rules to snipe games that promise beforehand. Like, it's okay if they still give something free after the awards, after they at least got nominated. But promising beforehand, of course, is not good. Like, do something about that, and I think we're good. And I think that's the way. I don't think we should allow games that already won or come out way before to participate in a certain year's Game of the Year. Especially, in my opinion, if that game is the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Final Fantasy VII. But I have a huge problem with how they're handling the Final Fantasy VII Remake. And you may say, why? It is beautiful. It's very fun. It looks amazing. It does. It really does. What I'm annoyed with is that the writing guy is the same guy as Kingdom Hearts, and he already personally messed up with especially Kingdom Hearts 3. I am not too happy with how is changing Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII got a remake because it's extremely popular. And the reason why it's extremely popular is because it is in a certain way. Don't change the way. Personally, I would have been way happier if the Game of the Year went to either Metaphor Fantasio or Balatro. At the very least, Black Myth Wukong. And I say at the very least not because Black Myth Wukong is bad, but because the developers are quite shady in some way. And same thing for Sony. Like, I didn't want them to have such a big achievement. Now, not a lot of people actually care about the Game Awards, but some people do see it as an achievement, and I don't think all the nominees for the Game of the Year actually deserved to have this achievement on their shelf. And now we get to Astrobot. Now, I feel like Astrobot deserved the prizes it won, because it's a good game, it's a very fun game, it's a very cute and nice game. But Astrobot is a Sony game, and I don't think Sony this year deserved any recognition this big. Sony, especially the PS5, as a console is losing. Okay, you can see around that even people that bought a PS5, even hardcore Sony fans, hardcore PlayStation 5 fans, are a bit disappointed with how Sony is handling the games for their console. There's not many games, and those who are on the PlayStation 5 are usually nothing great, except those one or two little big things that come out. Like sometimes Spider-Man comes out, sometimes Astrobot comes out, but we cannot have either Spider-Man or another Astrobot to come and win for Sony. like the situation for Sony is not amazing. I don't think they deserved to have an achievement this important on their shelves as Sony. The team behind Astrobot is obviously capable. Is obviously a very good team. But in an industry that is laying off a lot of people, like this guy, I feel like it's a saint. Like it's actually a nice and amazing person, and I think he's right. This industry is laying off a lot of people for no real reason, and I feel like Sony is one of the biggest culprits of this. Like many studios get shut down. They don't have much games. Microsoft is doing this too. So I don't think Sony deserved to say we won the Game of the Year 2024. Like I feel like Metaphor e Fantasio deserved the prize more, especially because it's Atlus, and Atlus rarely disappoints. So I personally will compliment Astrobot, but not Sony. Okay, not Sony. I don't think Sony deserved a prize this year. I don't think it did. But at the very least, it's not the DLC. Okay? At the very least, it's not the DLC. At the very least, it's not the remake. At the very least, it's not the remaster. At the very least, it's not all of that BS that the Game Awards pulled this year, which I think it was psychotic. Okay? Like, having Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth 3 as the GOTY nominees was no. Like there were 4 games this year. There were 4 new games this year. Because the other 2 games already come out. Okay? But this will conclude my discourse about the Game of the Year. Overall, I gotta say, pretty decent. Like, if you see my series of tweets, you can see that the very first I made was, I'm ready to be disappointed. After I watched the show, I'm not disappointed. I disagree. I may disagree with how some games won. I may disagree about the Game of the Year 2024. But it's the GOTY still went to a good game, which it's cool. The other prizes were okay. The announcements were okay. The show was okay. So overall, I am positively surprised. Maybe you can argue I was positively surprised because my expectations were low, which may be true, but I'll take it. Okay? In a world that is messy, I'll take it. Okay? This is my thoughts about the Game of the Year. Let me know in the comments what you think. And see you next time. Goodbye.